Welcome to RSQUAD. It is the month of May. We only have a couple weeks of school left. Can you believe it? Crazy. And we are bringing you a special one-off message tonight featuring Allie West. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're here, but you're probably also here at the 7th grade girls' house.
Yeah.
Shout out to the 7th grade girls.
Shout out.
Make some noise. We are not even starting a new series. We're just doing like one special message tonight. This is the last message for RSQUAD Homes that we're bringing in spring 2024 before school's out for the summer. So there was a lot of pressure as I was trying to figure out what to talk about.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about next
steps.
Nice. Next steps. Now, if you have been a part of Renovation Church for any amount of time, if you've been a part of RSQUAD for any amount of time, chances are you have heard us talk about next steps. I don't want to assume that anyone knows what that is. Mm-hmm. And so really what we're talking about when we're talking about next steps is we were created to live life with Jesus and to follow him, meaning our faith is something that is actively growing.
Yeah.
It's constantly moving forward. Hopefully it's moving forward. And the idea is that we believe every single person who's watching this video right now, whether you're a Christian or not, whether you're 6th grade or 12th grade, there is a step for you to take in your relationship with God. Your step may be different than someone else's step, but there is a step for you to take. And you're in a dangerous place as a Christian when you think that there's nothing left for you to do.
Yeah.
We're always learning. We're always growing. So I know that as I look back on my life as a middle schooler, high schooler, college, all of this stuff, my life really has been defined, and my spiritual life has been defined by big steps of faith, salvation, baptism, serving. There was a moment where I won't get into all the details, but I moved across the country to take an internship at a church. Huge faith step. I had no idea what I was doing. Was raising money, was living with a family I had never met before. It was like all brand new. But that moment and that series of events like drastically changed and marked my life. Missions trips, all these different things are steps of faith, and they change us and they mark us. So, Allie, I want to hear from you. I want to hear a little bit about your testimony. I want to hear about some of the big faith next steps that have happened in your specific life, and how have you grown from them? What have you learned?
Yeah. So I was saved at a really young age. I was six when I was saved. Mm-hmm. So I was really small. And I always have grown up around the church. I've always been either a volunteer kid or a staff kid. Mm-hmm. So that means I was at every single event.
Everything.
I was there at church every single Sunday. First one to get there, last one to leave.
Love it.
Every single week. And so I've just always kind of been around church my whole life. I started going to Renovation whenever we first launched. So I've
you're
also,
OG.
Yeah, real OG. First Sunday.
Wow.
So I've gotten to grow up alongside of our church growing up, which is just super cool. So then when I was in 6th grade, I started volunteering in Reno City, and that was super fun for me. I love kids ministry. I love kids. I always have just had a heart for kids, and I was with that group up until like earlier this year, whenever they got into 4th grade. So I've been with them for a while.
Crazy.
Yeah. So then I was in probably like my freshman year of high school, so still pretty young, and I got a text from Jordan, who had just become our youth pastor.
Whoa.
And he was asking me to start this thing called Summer Squad, to start in that this summer. And basically, we know that now as student leadership. But I started out in Summer Squad when it was just a group of 5 or 6 of us.
People, yeah.
And that was honestly such a huge life-changing moment for me. It was just a small little yes that I felt at the time that I said, like, hey, I don't have anything going on this summer.
Yeah.
Let me just be a part of this thing that our youth pastor asked me to be a part of. And I did it, and it ended up really honestly changing my life. And then out of that, I started to get a little more involved with the RSQUAD creative team. So I started like posting on Instagram once a week for us and doing stories for events and things like that. And then the opportunity came up for me to start running the Instagram. Jordan had asked me. And that was a super scary next step for me because I had never done anything like that before. I was a sophomore in high school when you asked me to do that.
I know, that's wild.
I was so young, and I did it, and I failed a few times, but I still did it, and it was a really hard next step for me to take, but it ended up being super special and important for my life.
Yeah.
And then my senior year of high school, I had the opportunity to be an intern.
Come on.
And that was also an easy yes for me because I knew that I wanted to continue pursuing creative ministry, especially with social media, and I just wanted like a bigger outlet to be able to do that. So I served on the RSQUAD team for about 2 years as an intern, and this year I'm the renovation creative intern, which is awesome. I still run the RSQUAD Instagram, and now I do the Reno Hampstead Instagram, which is super fun.
You're doing it all.
Yeah, I'm doing it
What do you
for
not do?
businesses, wedding planners.
Insane.
I'm doing it all.
You really are doing it all.
Yeah.
And one thing that's been so cool to watch specifically in you, and I think about a lot of other students, interns, people over the years, we've known each other for about 5 years.
Yeah.
And seeing just your growth in 5 years, there was a lot happening behind the scenes before I even knew you. But just in 5 years, that seems like a lot of time. In actuality, it's like, there's really not that much time. Yeah. Your growth has been incredible. And you mentioned it multiple times in your short little testimony here. It was just yes.
Yeah.
That was just like the answer is like, I don't know what the question is yet, but it's yes. The answer is yes. I haven't even been asked the question. Yep, I'm doing it. Student leadership, that's scary. Yes. Internship, ooh, I don't know. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Next thing, I'm doing it. I've failed a few times. Okay. But it's just yes. And I think sometimes as Christians, we can get comfortable with, okay, I got saved when I was 6. Okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. Oh, I got baptized when I was whatever. Okay, I'm good. I serve occasionally in the kids ministry. I'm good. It's just like, what? Okay, but many of you are doing that at 13, 14, 15, 16. There's more. Man, God has more for you. Even the ones that aren't doing any of it yet, you're like, whoa, being a Christian is more about just like going to church and doing whatever. It's like, yeah, it's taking steps of faith. It's next steps that grow you in your spiritual journey. And you and many of our other students are setting this amazing example of what it looks like to just have the attitude, the posture of, yes, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be comfortable. I don't want to get complacent. I don't want to get lazy in my spiritual journey. God has an amazing plan, amazing mission that he's called me to. I want to give everything I have towards that. Luke, behind the camera, is another amazing example of
Shout
this.
out
Just
Luke.
a guy who's saying yes to recording, to videoing, to all the work that has to get set up in order to do this podcast. He's editing it. Like, guys, there's a lot that goes into this. It's not just click a button and boom, it's live. There's a lot that happens. So my point in here is that as Christians, we are always taking steps.
Yeah.
There's a step for you. Even if you've gone this entire year going, I don't really want to take any steps. Well, I want to encourage you and challenge you today to take a step. Yeah. So we're going to share 2 scriptures with you. And there's many that we could have talked about that kind of apply to this idea. The first one is just, where do we even get the idea of taking a step of faith? So 2 verses. The first one, very short. 2 Corinthians 5:7 says, we walk by faith, not by sight. I think everyone can memorize that verse.
Yeah, that's
we
easy.
walk by faith, not by sight. Mm-hmm. Okay, what does this mean? It means we walk with Jesus, meaning walking is like an active thing.
Yeah.
It's not sitting down, it's moving. So we're moving.
Yeah.
We're taking steps with Jesus, but we're not doing it based off of everything we can see. And I think that's where we get hung up.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not doing it if I can't see it.
Yeah.
And that's not even just spiritually, that's just in life.
Yeah.
You're thinking about college, you're thinking about applying for a job, you're thinking about trying out for the team, like all these things. And we get scared, like, if I don't know how it's all going to work out, I don't want to do it. The unknown is scary. And I agree, it is. But faith is literally the idea of, I can't see it. I don't know how it's going to go. What if I mess up? What if I fail? What if I don't have what, like, but I'm still walking with Jesus. He's got me. And so I'm going to step out in faith. So when we're talking about this spiritually, we understand like God's got me. I'm walking with God. And the Bible later actually says in Hebrews, without faith, it's impossible to please God. That is a scary verse. Yeah. If you're living life right now as a Christian, but there's no faith, like you're not stepping out to do anything.
Yeah.
You're not trusting God. It's only in your own power. You're not living a life that pleases God. I know that may sound a little crazy or harsh. That's even convicting for me right now. Like, what areas of my life am I living in faith with? But oftentimes, right, we don't take steps to grow our relationship with God because we're just not living with faith.
Yeah.
Steps require faith.
Yeah.
There may have been a few little steps you did a while back that you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of easy. Oh, serving? Pfft, okay, whatever, not that big of a deal. I'll go help with the kids or hold the door open or help with the cameras.
Yeah.
But there's going to come a moment where there's some big steps of faith and they're uncomfortable and they're scary and they're new and there's discovery and there's a lot of trust in God that goes with that. I want to ask this question. You're a former student.
Yeah.
You now work with students. You're in the student world. What are some reasons you see for students who get stuck? Like, they get to this point and then they're just like stuck or stagnant in their faith or their relationship with God. What do you see maybe personally, but also reasons for why that happens?
I think most of the time, like probably 95% of the time, is because we're too scared of the future and the unknown, like how you were saying earlier. If we don't know what's ahead of us, sometimes we get a little bit like nervous to take that step because we don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
I felt that being in high school, especially like my whole life, I wanted to be a teacher. That was, I had it all planned out ever since elementary school, 2nd grade. I remember being like, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I took classes in high school because I wanted to be a teacher. I took classes for that. I did all the things. I worked at a preschool. I did everything I could to prepare myself. And then I started, getting more involved at renovation and realizing like, oh, shoot, maybe I don't want to be a teacher anymore. Like, what am I going to do about that?
Yeah.
And so for the longest time, I just ignored that like pull I had into ministry because I didn't want to be uncomfortable, because I didn't know what would happen if I let go of the teaching thing and fully went for the ministry thing. And for so long, I just lived in that fear of like not wanting to let go and let God direct my path. And in saying that is honestly me saying like, God, I don't trust you. I trust myself more than I trust you.
Yeah.
And not being obedient is saying like, hey, I got this on my own. Like, I don't need your help.
Yeah.
Even though he was the one that brought me here in the first place.
Right.
And so I think that a big part of like realizing that you need to take a next step is just accepting that you need to trust God and you need to let him guide you instead of let your heart guide you or let yourself guide yourself.
Yeah, of course. No, it's great wisdom. I think you hit the nail on the head. I talk with a lot of students, not even just spiritually, but just in life. And it's like, I don't want to do anything if I'm not 100% sure what the outcome is. And I've been there at times myself, but I know the biggest times I've seen God move and the biggest times I've grown are when I did something that was scary and weird and I'd never done it before and was like, I don't know how this is going to go, but God, I think you're calling me to this. And so I'm going to lean into that and go for it. And I haven't always gotten it right, but those are those moments that change you and mark you and shape you. And those are the moments where we're pleasing to the Lord and when we honor him, and that's where real growth happens. This last verse, I love this, Colossians 2:6-7. It says, just as you accepted Jesus as your Lord, you must continue to follow him. So it's like doubles down on what we were talking about. Man, a lot of people live their life like, okay, I already accepted Jesus, so now I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm going to heaven.
Yay.
I'm just going to kind of sit around and wait until I die is kind of like their mindset.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? No, that is like a horrible way to live. Don't do that. Amazing that you've accepted Jesus. But this verse literally says, you accepted Jesus as Lord. You must continue to follow him.
Yeah.
Are you still following him a year later? Are you still following him 5 years later, 20 years later? This is what it says. Let your roots grow down into him and let your lives be built on him. Then your faith will grow strong in the truth you were taught, and you will overflow with thankfulness.
Yeah.
What sticks out to you about these verses? This is good stuff.
It's so good. Kind of like how you were sort of talking on. You have to continually follow him. It's not just your one time, like, I'm going to receive salvation. Like, that's great. That's a awesome first step that you need to take, that I believe everyone should take. But it's not just that one time yes. It's multiple yeses that you have to continue saying yes to the Lord. You have to continue to take those steps, because then you're just going to be in this one little like space of your life, and you're going to get comfortable, and being comfortable is actually scarier than being uncomfortable sometimes, because you're just sitting there doing your own thing all the time. And like you were saying, like, you're basically just like, okay, yep, I'm saved. I'm going to heaven. Let me just wait.
Yeah, is that the end?
Yeah. Like, what? That's so boring.
Yeah.
Like, you need to live your life in pursuit of God, in pursuit of the next steps that he has for you.
Yeah, that's great. Here's something that I think students don't think about a lot. Our faith is constantly moving.
Yeah.
Either towards God or away from God.
Yeah.
It's never really just staying in one place. I think sometimes we think like, oh, I haven't read my Bible in a while, I haven't gone to church in a while, haven't been praying, all that. We think after a few months or whatever, we're just going to pick it back up where we left off. But that's not really how it works. It's like, if you're not refining that skill and practicing that, it's like playing an instrument or playing a sport or whatever it is. It's like you lose a little bit of that. You get a little rusty, as people say. So we actually like slide back. It's not like we just stay here. It's like we're either moving towards God or we're moving towards other things, which means we're moving away from God.
Yeah.
We're all taking steps towards something. Yeah. It's either towards Jesus or away from Jesus. And so we've accepted Christ, as you mentioned. That's the first step. That's the beginning, not the end. And then taking next steps, as this verse says, is how our roots grow down into God.
Yeah.
That's how the roots grow down into God. And then we build our lives on him. And then it says our faith grows in the truth. So you see that as someone grows in spiritual maturity, they take steps of faith and they become a thankful person. They become a strong person. They know the truth and their roots grow down into him. If that's the type of life you want, it requires faithful yeses and steps to get there. So you've shared a little bit of this, but can you talk a little bit more about some of the big faith steps that you've taken, and then how you directly saw like growth in your spiritual life as a result of that?
Yeah. When I was in, I think probably like middle school, I believed the lie of like, I have no more next steps I need to take. And I'm saved.
We're talking to some of you.
Yeah.
Right now.
I'm saved and I'm doing it. Another thing I was super scared of for a long time was getting baptized.
Yeah. We're talking to some of you.
We're talking to some of you specifically. Yes. I was so scared of being baptized because I didn't want people looking at me. Yeah. Like that was, I feel like anyone that's scared of getting baptized is like that.
Usually that's the big
what
reason.
You're scared of. So then I finally did say yes to baptism in 9th grade. I got baptized the summer right before 9th grade. And then
you're still here. You didn't die.
I'm still here. I didn't die. People looked at me a little bit, but it's fine.
Yeah.
But then after I got baptized, I remember being like, okay, guess that's it. I serve and I got baptized recently and I'm saved. And that's all I need to do.
Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes, not to interrupt you, but we can do a bad job of leaving it at that.
Yeah.
We kind of just talk about those three: salvation, baptism, serving. And then you can quickly go, okay, got it. 3 for 3. I'm good. But there's more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then out of the baptism piece is when I started summer squad and student leadership. And that is when I started taking those, I guess, smaller next steps that don't really, honestly, they don't seem like next steps when you're taking them, but then you look back on it and you realize like, wow, that's why I'm here today.
Yeah.
So that small next step of me just saying yes to being a part of something during the summer, being in summer squad, like that was something that was huge for my life that I didn't see at the time. Something small was saying yes to being on the creative team.
Right.
And just doing some stories. That seemed really small, but then that also led up to me running the Instagram, like I said earlier, which is pretty big, but still seemed a little bit small in my head. And then that ended up with me being an intern at Renovation, which is a pretty big step.
That's a big one.
So sometimes you just need to walk in faith with the tiny little things.
Yes.
And then the Lord will provide those bigger opportunities for you.
That's it. That's Bible. That's God trusts you with a little bit, you get a little bit more. And it's those little yeses over time. And God goes, I can trust you.
Yeah.
You're reliable. I can count on you. I gave you this. You operated in faith. It was pleasing. Here's a little bit more. And you've done a mission trip. You did Ecuador last year, I think it was.
Yeah,
that's a
summer.
huge step. What a eye-opening experience. Your internship for a few years. You're a person who's continually growing. And again, like you, me, we don't always get it right. But I want to be able to look back over a year or 2 years or 4 years and be like, man, I'm moving in the right direction. Yeah. Some of you are 10th, 11th, 12th grade, and you're like, whoa, I'm almost done with high school. Like, how did this happen? Like, it's going by fast. And so we want to help every single student tonight. Yeah. As you prepare for graduation or ending 8th grade or closing out the school year, moving into the summer is classically a time where people do nothing. Yeah. Students, where they do nothing. You playing a lot of Fortnite. You're on the boat all the time. Nothing wrong with any of that. But there's a lot of times you're like, I'm so done with school. I'm so done with this. I'm so done with this. Yeah. I'm not doing anything. And the summer can easily become like a stretch of time where you pull away and start taking steps towards other things. And we don't want that to happen. So our goal right now is to help you be able to identify what's my next thing. Yeah. What's my next thing? Like we said at the beginning, it may be different for a bunch of different students in the room. Your step may be different than the person sitting next to you. Yeah. It may be different than your best friend's step. And that's okay. But everyone's got a step to take. Yeah. So we actually want your groups and all that to be focused tonight on like, what is the step? And we want to just give you some of those steps. Like I literally just wrote some out. Salvation. That's a big one. Yeah. Baptism, public profession of faith. Serving people, being others first minded, attending summer camp. Man, some of you were scared to go to camp. Yeah. To be away from home or to be on a bus or like whatever it is. Or some of you are like, well, I already been to camp. Bring a friend with you to camp. Student leadership, going on a mission trip, applying to be an intern. Honestly, some of you, it's like being for the one. I need to get a person that I can invest in and pray for and disciple. Sharing your testimony. That's a step. Developing a plan for reading the Bible for prayer. Don't just close the list off at like, oh, I already got saved. Yeah. There's a step for you to take. And I actually think many of you probably know what it is. Yeah. You just been putting it off for a little while or just haven't mustered up the faith to do it. Yeah. So a few things that I want to land on, if you have any that you want to add, but how do I figure out my step? This is how we're going to close. A few things. You got to identify where you're at. Yeah. Okay. If you've been saved but not yet baptized, Jesus says that's the next thing. If you are not a Christian, you don't know Jesus, man, tonight your next step could just be, I want to ask one of these leaders about what salvation even is. Yeah. That's a step. Just identify where you're at. What are you already doing? Okay, that's great. Well, those have been completed. Awesome. Let's move on to what has not yet been uncovered. What's going to require faith? That's the next thing. Like, is there something you've been thinking about, but you have to step out in faith to do it? It's not going to be easy. You're like, I don't even want to tell anybody because then I feel like I'm going to have to do it. Yeah. That's probably the thing. Send it. Just like tell your group leader, tell your small group, I'm stepping out in faith to do this. And then talk with your small group leaders and mentors and look at this list. We're going to provide a list to everyone. I'm actually going to throw a QR code onto the screen somewhere around here. We got a big Next Steps resource that we want to provide you with so that you can actually see what steps are, how to take them, other students' testimonies and stories that have taken them, and we want to help you out. We want you to leave RSQUAD at the end of this school year, launched into the summer, not as the summer of, oh, I'm going to slide back and do whatever and take a summer off. No, we want it to be like the summer of you taking steps towards Jesus. Any final wisdom to add to this?
Yeah. If you're trying to decide what next step for you to take, look at the list of the next steps that we have and think about which one makes you the most uncomfortable.
Yes.
Which one you're like, oh, gosh, I don't know about that.
I don't know if I can do that.
Do it.
Yeah. That's
do
so
that
great.
one.
That is literally such great advice. Your leaders are here to help you. Allie, thank you for not just teaching this, but living it. You're an amazing example that students look up to. And I think that as students see more examples like you, they're going, oh, okay, Allie's been doing these steps. I want to be like Allie. I want to live that life. Okay, I'm going to take some steps of faith as well. So I appreciate you taking some time to come on the podcast.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Students, we love you. We'll see you next time. Step out in faith. Take that step.
Take it.
Peace.